Right then, today we're talking traffic film removers, or a TFR, which generally as we're using that today, it's just something as a treatment that you're going on before with your snow foam or your pre-wash. So we're talking TFR in our case today and seeing if they still have a place in the car care industry and for washing your vehicles. So let's get right into it. So as always then, I'll include timestamps throughout the video, so if you want to jump along and have a look depending on which part of the process is or discussion or wherever you're wanting to get to, they're always down below, so feel free to do that. So in our case then, we are going to be using a TFR today just because, you know, a number of years ago I made the mistake, if we can call it that, of buying a 20-litre drum of the stuff, and as you'll see in a minute, there's still plenty left. It's not something I use even sort of ad hoc really, you know, once in a blue moon. I just don't tend to use it at all. So maybe you're using them in the winter to treat that real heavy contamination on your paintwork and looking to decontaminate as much as possible before you're doing your contact wash. That seems to have fallen out of favour in recent years, and things like citrus pre-washes and tend to now have replaced those. And you know, today's question is basically, do they still have a place, or does a pre-wash, you know, in general like this, or a pre-treatment before you pre-wash or snow foam, have a place in your routine? So for today's example then, we're going to be using this drum, as I mentioned before, which is was originally 20 litres. As you can see, I've not used hardly any of that. I've made up a couple of pump sprayers over years. I've used this for doing very specific things like stripping waxes, sealants, spray coatings, that sort of thing. And when you're not using it on label, basically, you can use it for that. But when you're going off label and using it for those sorts of things, it can actually be very dangerous to your car, so you've got to be real careful. I did have one time where I actually stained some of the sort of piano black trim on the outside, just basically making a too strong a dilution to strip them waxes and sealants and everything as quick as possible. I used to like try and accelerate that process. So in that instance, what I was doing a full machine polish and basically looking to take off any existing sealants, spray waxes, those sorts of things. I had used this back originally when I got it off label for really heavy contamination on a bit of an ad hoc basis, down at 20:1. I've used it down at 10:1, but at that sort of level, you're looking at damage in a real accelerated manner if you're not very careful, or staining of piano products. So those piano black trims and everything that you might see on the outside of some vehicles, such as my Range Rover that I usually have on the channel, this will stain those and will give you a lightened effect on the piano finish. So it's not something you wanted to get into down at that 10:1, 20:1 for sort of regular routine washing. That's how you damage your car. This then, what they recommend off straight on label. So firstly, this is HLS's TF100. The sort of name gives it away in terms of dilution. So this is their non-caustic traffic film remover. It's basically for domestic use and light commercial use is what it's marketed as. Non-caustic is obviously good. We don't want any heavy caustic products in our cars or vehicles where we can help it. So in terms of dilutions and mixings and everything for this product, all I've got is a cheap Amazon pump sprayer. I keep these mixed up. You know, I use one for, say, a TFR, I'll have one with a fallout remover. I might have one that I'll use for basically putting pre-washes on, or a contact wash soap or something like that. One that I'll go between. So I've got at least 3 of these always made up for different jobs. So this has been sat then, pre-made, ready to go. 100:1 dilution of this HLS 100 traffic film remover. So this is what we're going to use for today's example. What we're going to do is, to try and highlight the difference, whether it actually works or not, whether this should have a place in your wash routine, we'll do half the vehicle with the TFR treatment and then half without. We'll then apply a snow foam over the top of that, let it dwell for a normal time, and then we'll do a rinse with the pressure washer. After that, hopefully we'll be able to see a visible difference without drying. Maybe we'll have to dry the vehicle to see that, but we'll certainly see. And then obviously after that, you can make a decision on whether they're worth using or not, how much it has made a difference or not in this case, we'll have to see. And we'll go from there in terms of then what you would do next steps regarding obviously normal washing processes like contact wash and everything after that. So this is what we're going with today. We'll get it all set up and everything outside and we'll get into the wash. Right then, looking at a bit of something different this week. My car's in the garage, just having a few bits of maintenance done, general maintenance, servicing, etc. So I've got this loan car from them. So it's a Land Rover Discovery Sport. So this is one of the original models, one of the early Disco Sports. Does look like it's seen a fair beating over the years. Very dirty inside and out, and a lot of the These what should be piano black panelling are just horrible, faded, not in good condition whatsoever. I've got a dirty car then, plenty of road film, mag chloride, salts and everything. These wheels should be gloss black, heavily curbed. Again, not something I'm a fan of myself. Gloss black wheels, they tend to look real dirty really quick, so you can see the state of these already. But generally, for being a full-time courtesy car, it's not too bad, I suppose. You could be getting something a lot worse. That's a general look at condition. As you can see, got the usual bit of build up here on the rear, as you'd expect. Backs always do tend to get dirty, although this isn't the worst thing ever. Outside, we just had a quick look at condition. Like I mentioned before, in garage, we're going to use half the car as an example for putting a TFR or a treatment on it, such as a citrus pre-wash. We'll see what difference this actually makes then when it comes to putting a snow foam or a pre-wash on the car, and having a look after those rinse results, see how much of that extra dirt, contamination, traffic film, road salts and everything have been lifted in comparison to just the foam itself. So that's us all TFR'd one side of the vehicle then, complete. You know, we're not done the roof or anything, but sides, back, all the front areas, all done. We'll get the snow foam on, which today is Koch Chemie's Active Foam, once again. Same as last week on the channel, so we'll get this on, see how it goes. Right, so that's had plenty of dwell time. We're going to give it a rinse off now, see if we can see any noticeable differences. Right then, first off we'll start at the non-treated side. So this had no TFR before the pre-wash went on. So as you can see, there's still an improvement as you'd expect. It's had a full pre-wash and pressure wash. This car actually needs a full decontamination. There's tar spots everywhere, the paint feels awful, it's full of fallout, so it needs a full, real good decon, full fallout removal, tar and glue. It probably want clay in as well, but it's just a courtesy car. We've got it for the day, we're not going to go crazy. Here we are looking at the underside then. I have give this a full close-up jet wash, try and sort of mechanically aid the removal of these bits here. Like I mentioned before, these alloys are knackered, they've been curbed, they're all delaminating, lacquer's coming off and everything. So, not really a concern of ours as to how clean it is. Then where it has a TFR, this is better than the other side. Then it is generally overall a little bit cleaner. Again, these alloys are knackered, paint missing and chipped and scuffed and everything. Again, there's been absolutely no contact on this. So in terms of what's required to get any of this stuff off, would come off with a contact wash, but we've not gone that far. So in terms of this plastic trim then along here on the bottom, we have seen a general improvement on this side compared to the other one with the addition of the TFR, although still not great as you can see. Again, I've done a full close-up with the pressure washer, try and mechanically aid that as much as possible. But even still, in doing so, you can see the level of traffic film still on there. Right then, we're back in the garage. So in terms of what we've seen then with the results, again, obviously we're doing a totally contactless wash in this scenario. We're not going full hog or anything. It's literally just, I've got a hire car for the day. I don't want to spend loads of time on it. It's not my own personal vehicle. It's not somebody else's vehicle who's paying for a service or anything to be done and expecting any sort of demonstrable results. That's not what we're after. We're just looking for, is there a clear difference, yes or no, in terms of should you be using a TFR? Does it still have a place? You know, maybe you've gone to a citrus pre-wash and that's deemed as a safer alternative these days and something that's more in normal circulation and use. Do these things have the place? Are they again going to be a real big difference maker? So if you've watched last week's video in terms of active foam, you've seen the results on that one, and is it over and above and beyond what's called a pre-wash? Is it better than a snow foam? It's highly debatable. One of those things where I say if there is a difference, it's almost marginal and you can't tell. You know, when you're looking with the eye, it's a lot easier to tell these things than it is on camera, and when you're looking, it's next to no difference. It's really negligible if there is any difference with those sort of products. So we've obviously used this today. I'm quite a fan of these Amazon pump sprayers. As you can see, there were no editing or anything during that application. So if you, whatever you've seen, I literally pumped it once and went over a full half the car. Didn't need to repump it and repressure it or anything, the container. Really good for what they are, really cheap, cost effective, decent thickness and build quality on the polymers. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with this. In terms of this TFR specifically, it's not a review of the TFR or this particular one. So I think they do have the place, especially when you're talking full winter months. I'll see how it comes up on camera. Obviously, when you're looking at the post-production in sort of the editing phase, for me, I tend to get a better view as to what does it actually look like on camera. Obviously, I can see it with my eye on the day when I'm doing it, and I think, oh yeah, there's a noticeable difference. You'll get it in the editing software and you're on your laptop, you know, sort of in that editing process, and you think, well, actually, it's really hard to tell on camera. Sometimes it's not the easiest thing to do, or to, you know, basically put a good argument together as to, oh yeah, look at the differences for these products, you know, it's really good. It's not the best. Do they make a difference? Yes, they do make a difference. Again, we'll see how it comes across on camera. There is a clear difference one side of the vehicle to the other, at least when I'm going around and looking. Hopefully that comes across on camera. In terms of traffic film, contamination, this isn't a great, you know, example in terms of it's a courtesy car. It's absolutely hammered. I've never seen as much tar on a car. It's absolutely blathered, alt front, alt sides, blathered in tar. You know, it must have a lot of ferrous deposits and stuff like that on the paintwork because it's really rough, awful to touch. But aside from the car itself, you know, does the process itself work? Yes, it works. Obviously, this is at 100 to 1 with this TFR. Results tend to sort of linearly track the sort of dilutions you go for. So if all of a sudden you want to go to an 80 to 1 or a 50 to 1, you will see increased performance with this, as I mentioned before. I have done it down to 10 to 1 for stripping paints, waxes, sealants and everything. 20 to 1, 25 to 1 is maybe the strongest you'd ever want to go if you were doing this in terms of just applying it before a snow foam. But, you know, if you're in that 25 to 50 to 1 maybe, you will see a, you know, sort of linear response in terms of how strong you make it and how good the product is. At 100 to 1, it's not the most effective thing in the world, but with that said, do you want it to be? I'm not sure. You know, you're probably erring on that side of caution and thinking, I'd rather it just do a bit more than not using it instead of worrying about badges that you're worried about, or certain trim pieces, maybe some chrome, something like that, or piano black trim that you're worried about dulling off and potentially damaging, then this 100 to 1 is a safe option for that. It will give you that little extra cleaning that you're after, just with the snow foam and rinsing process before you do your contact wash. So it'll help give you that extra level of safety. So hopefully that's what you want, that's what you're after. The question then is, when you've decided you maybe want to use a bit of a treatment, a bit of a pre-treatment before your pre-wash or snow foam, what do you go with? Do you go with TFR? I mean, probably not. Is there a place for these in the car care and car cleaning world? There is a place for them. I certainly, like I mentioned before, don't use it. I've had this a number of years, and you're still talking, I've used maybe a couple of litres out of a 20 litre drum. When you're looking at making up 5 litre dilutions in the pump sprayer, it takes forever and a day to go through these things. Very cost effective if you're doing mass volumes of cars, even if it's just your own cleaning service. Obviously hand car washes as they are, they tend to use this sort of product if they do step up to this and they're not using brick and concrete acid. Would this have a place in your professional business, your retailer, your car cleaner, your valeting cars on a full-time basis? You could look at, if you're absolutely looking at cost per wash and getting your costs down, instead of using a more expensive citrus pre-wash, which tend to be sold in smaller volumes and quantities than these. But you'd have to make that personal decision. Obviously dilutions and everything, then you'd have to work out what works for you, what's acceptable on a normal everyday car, where you're not looking to damage trims and everything, because you can really run into problems with these sorts of products. If you're new to these, I would say be very careful. Like I said, stay on label, don't go off label in terms of dilutions and uses, because you will end up damaging trims, badges, chrome pieces, whatever it is, something like that. Piano black, if you've got that on outside of your car, in terms of similar to on my Range Rover I usually have on channel, if you've got any piano black trims on your doors or anything, they can have the place then. I think you've got to want this and the sort of economy and scale that it brings with it. Instead, what my recommendation would be is use a citrus pre-wash with your snow foam, or if you're thinking of using neutral foam and that's why you're thinking of citrus pre-washes or TFRs to help that cleaning power, maybe add in something like Koch Chemist Green Star or an APC to your snow foam, whether that be one of your personal choice that's out of that range. Then what I would recommend in that case is just step up to a better pre-wash. There's a lot of ceramic safe pre-washes out there now that are high cleaning, high strength, some high pH, but it's not really something to worry about. When you're talking about their non-caustic products, they're probably using sodium hydroxide. They might be a pH 12, 13, but they are coating safe. I know the channels have done sort of longer term degradation on using a pH 12 or 13 product versus a pH 7 long term. Does it make any difference to a ceramic coating? It is very negligible when you're on about full ceramic coatings. When you're talking spray sealants, waxes, things like that, it's probably more of a damning thing. But if they're only lasting 3 to 6 months anyway, and you lose a bit of a percentage of that total lifetime performance, is it going to be a big deal if you have to reapply it a month early? You'd have to make that decision for yourself. So in that time, then maybe you're having to reapply a sealant or a coating or something somewhat prematurely as to what you might expect. But what you might have done in that time is kept your paint work in generally better condition. So if you've got a better pre-wash and then your contact wash is safer as a result, you've a lot less chance of scratching and marring and everything in that contact wash than trying to use something that's neutral, look after a coating, potentially leaving dirt, contaminants, traffic film, road salts and everything behind after the pressure wash and the snow foam, and then all you're doing is damaging your paint more. So what would you rather have? Better quality paint that you've maybe machine polished and coated at some point, whether that's just a spray coating and you didn't go ceramic route, or maybe you like applying waxes or something like that and you're into more that sort of thing, and generally having that bit more contact time, and you like buffing on your car a bit more than just a set and forget products like a ceramic coating. So if that's you and you've done that, I would recommend just using a higher strength pre-wash that's more effective anyway. You're going to look after your paint generally in a better condition doing that than trying to use traffic film removers, citrus pre-washes and the like, and then doing a neutral-ish snow foam after that. I'd recommend just using a Built Amber Touchless or equivalent, depending on a full strength pre-wash, whatever you're into. And I think you'll have a lot better results with that, not only cleaning wise week to week then, but also longer term paint protection in terms of scratching, marring, swirling and everything. If you've got a cleaner car to start with after that pre-wash and that rinse, then when you're looking at a post-rinse contact wash, you know, you're going to have a lot better time doing that and looking after your paint and potentially not having to machine polish it or buff it, you know, more often. If you're using a pH neutral soap, worrying about a ceramic coating or a spray sealant or something along that ilk, but then you're having to machine polish it once a year because you're basically washing what is a dirty car because the pre-wash isn't as effective as it could be, then for me, I would much rather have the correct strength pre-wash in terms of using one of those stronger products. If you've done that, you will then have a cleaner car to contact wash and you've a lot less chance of inflicting damage on the clear coat after that. So that would be my personal preference. So yes, these can have the place. So most people out there aren't generally doing a full machine polish, and even if they do, you know, depending on what level of protection they've gone to after that, are they ever going to do it again? Did they pay for it doing? Are they going to do it themselves? If it's something you've done yourself, it's not as much of an issue. If you've paid for your car machine polishing and then maybe a coating applying, you want to look after that in the best possible way, and doing that is basically using the best pre-wash available to you, not using a neutral foam and then thinking of adding TFRs or citrus pre-washes or something along that line. You're better off just going full, best strength, pre-wash, best cleaning power available to you and looking after that finish, basically. That's my preference. You know, even though I do all my own detailing, I do my own ceramic coatings, I do my own machine polishing and all that sort of stuff. So yes, I can do it myself. Do I still want to be doing it myself more often than is needed? Or, you know, prematurely because I've done the same thing where I'm inflicting damage on a weekly basis? No, I don't. I'd rather just use the best possible products and processes available to me to begin with, you know, to stop that paint damage on the or the clear coat damage from happening in the first place. If you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing. It helps out a lot. I'm only sort of 4 months into this now, and being a brand new channel, it's sort of hard to get your videos out there and, you know, get a decent reach on the algorithm. Really appreciate any support you can give me in terms of subscribing. Like the video if you haven't already.